Good afternoon. My name is Gabor Monori, and today I have the privilege to talk about a pioneering partnership that relates to PSD2 specifics. The first major case when trust services become an EU-wide applied tool of the financial sector, and the reason of a Polish and a Hungarian qualified trust service provider when they decided to serve their clients together on a pioneering way is actually the PSD2 directive. Today, I'm going to talk about third-party providers, banks, their new environment, and about trust service providers that are actually providing a new tool for this trusted situation. Back to my first slide, let me tell you a short story that happened back in 2018 and 20th of March in Sophia, Antipolis, Niza, France. On that very day, British, Polish, Italian, and Hungarian experts presented the PSD2 specific certificate profiles. That was the very moment when the EIDAS regulation met the PSD2 directive. So the new tool for a trusted economy emerged at that day. What else we need to add? First of all, let me tell a little bit about the motivation of the EU when actually created the PSD2 directive. It is threefold. First of all, make the European financial service providers and make the payment providers competitive with American and Asian challengers and services. These services, a couple of years ago, started to be offered for European citizens, which they cannot find when they were looking for such services within their domestic banks. The second motivation why the PSD2 directive came into existence to shake up the calm and peaceful European banks and banking sector and force them to offer flexible services and new services apart from the old school crediting, debiting, and saving functions. The third motivation of the PSD2 directive was a little bit more practical, to regulate those providers that are handling customer data and customer account, bank account data, and actually initiate transactions, payment transactions on behalf of them. And what is the state of play in 2020? Currently, a bit less than 6,000 banks and credit institutes operating in the EU, and today a little bit more than 400 third-party providers, payment providers, exist within the EU. Let me show you again this figure, which is actually published by the Open Banking Europe recently, 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. It shows the number of trust service third-party providers that actually uses the PSD2 specific certificates. One fact about the banking sector, which actually surprised me a lot, that the second most banking-heavy country within the European Union is Poland. Actually, 11% of the credit institutes are Polish within the European Union. The first is the German, the second the Austrian, and the fourth is the Italians. Trust service providers, because of PSD2 directive, got a very new role. We are very happy to get this new role. Thanks to the EIDAS ecosystem, we can provide a new trust function for the payment services. So what I'm going to talk about now is what are the new tasks and what is the job to be done by the trust service provider. An eligible trust service provider makes sure that two regulated financial providers, typically a bank and a third-party payment provider, can have trusted access to the data of the bank account users and may initiate transactions on behalf of the account user without having any bilateral contractual relationship between the bank and the third-party payment provider. So they are lacking the trust link. The trust link is provided by the trust service providers, us, and these are special, as the financial sector call it, EIDAS certificates. These certificates actually ensuring that only an entitled entity can process account owner data's order, and the data flows within a secure channel, and the data file remains at the same time intact and trustworthy. There are new dependencies as well. I listed a couple of players, actually almost all the players within the PSD2 ecosystem. But these dependencies are kind of can be kind of strange sometimes. For example, a national competent authority that regulates and lists the PSD2 specific payment providers actually need to provide data for trust service providers when trust service providers try to verify the PSD2 specific roles of a bank or of a third-party payment provider. This is a strange new situation, but thanks to the experiences of the past 1.5 years, it's getting smoother and smoother. But also, let me go back a little bit to my previous slide, because I would like to list those new tasks that are needed to fulfill by the trust service providers when they want to issue these trust links, the PSD2 specific certificates for the payment service providers. For example, conformity, it's very important. We need to fulfill a certain audit process in order to become capable issuing PSD2 certificates. It's a critical thing, most probably the most critical thing, to do the personal identification and personal identity verification of legal representatives of banks or other payment service providers. Before COVID-19, it was a little bit more easier because we can easily and we could easily meet with them in person. But these days, the only way we can do is the remote way. It is challenging. For certain trust service providers, the online video identification is a given. But for other providers that are located in other member states, it's not an option. They need to use other ways to do the personal verification, identity verification. PSD2 specific role checks, as I mentioned previously, can be tricky sometimes when a national competent authority doesn't really provide the exact data what a trust service provider needs in order to issue a certificate for his client, for example, for a bank. A very typical error is when a bank is listed with a different name at the national competent authority than they actually have in reality because of maybe brand change or something. This can be tough sometimes to convince them to modify these lists and registry parts. Pre-sales activity, it's actually more required than in any other cases, because many times third-party payment providers doesn't really know how to apply, use, validate these kind of certificates. And obviously, we need to follow up the changes down the track. As I mentioned previously, the market size is very limited. For banks, it's a highly recommended service. Only for the third-party payment providers, it's compulsory to make the use of the PSD2 specific certificates. So you can actually already imagine the reason why the 6,000 credit institutes and the 400 third-party payment providers are being served only by 20-something qualified trust service providers. Let me also list a couple of experiences that are actually kind of environmental challenges. Since 2018, we faced a couple of newly emerged questions. The very first was, in 2018, whether we should issue simple QX, Qualified Website Authentication Certificates, or extended validation QX. It was not easy to decide at the very beginning, but later on it turned out that maybe it works to do both. And also there were compatibility issues within these certificate profiles. I'm not going to talk about that maybe later on during the question session. The effect of COVID-19 make the personal identification a little bit more difficult. And currently, we are facing a new market change starting from 2021, January. The Brexit most probably will happen, and almost the half of the third-party payment providers suddenly find themselves outside of the European Union, which means that the PSD2 directive is not effective for them anymore. So no one knows yet what's going to happen. And we have a parallel happening in the meantime. This is the EIDAS revision, which we really hope that will change a little bit and unify on a more deeper way the legislative background to issue any kind of certificates, not just the PSD2 specific certificates. As I promised, the second focus of this presentation is on a very pioneer, unique partnership between the Polish ASECO data systems and the Hungarian Microsec, us. Actually, a while ago, at the beginning of last year, we have realized that we can actually share each other capacity on the way to serve each other clienteles and equip them PSD2 specific certificates in Poland as well. Obviously, as you could see, setting up PSD2 specific service, it's very costly, and it doesn't really worth to make it for a couple of dozens of clients. But if we unify our forces, economies of scale will apply. And this is my almost last slide. So a couple of takeaways about partnerships, qualified trust service partnerships in general. First of all, competition triggers pioneer ideas. This is a very motivating something. And we recommend to meet your competitors on a regular way. Share experiences, listen other trust service providers. Down the track, if you are lucky enough and smart enough, you can cut costs, lower the prices, and create mutual revenue. And you can also take time to influence regulators, see the ongoing EIDAS revision. But probably the most important thing is to join sector-specific clubs. Arriving to my last slide, few words about Microsec. We are an independent software vendor, a qualified trust service provider operating since 1984 in Hungary. We have currently 110 people. Out of these guys, 45 people are engineers. So we are a very engineering-focused company. We are part of a couple of sector-specific clubs, as you can see the list in the bottom line. Well, if you have any kind of question about the partnership or about the PSD2 specific certificates, feel free to raise your questions later. Thank you for your attention.